Hi there, my friends. I've got a great guest joining me. It's one of your favorites. It's the Legal Eagle, Eric Segall. Lots to discuss with him. We had a great conversation. We were live yesterday evening, afternoon. Thanks to everybody who joined us live. If you're not subscribed to YouTube and Substack at StandUpWithPete, then please go subscribe to those two right now. My conversation with Segall is coming up at 27 minutes, but first I've got your headlines and your clips, what I call the shit show. It's the news segment coming up in just a moment. Just want to remind you, we have announced PodJam 3 is happening in April. There is tickets in Everyday's show notes right now. We'll have more details soon for you, but hope to see you in Las Vegas in April. Also want to announce, looks like our friend JL Covan, who's running for Congress in New Jersey's 11th district, has met the required signatures by the deadline. He got over 600 signatures. He needed 500, and that means he is in as a candidate officially. Very excited for him, and hopefully I'll try to catch up with him this week. But his podcast, I'm sure he'll talk a lot about it when it drops on Thursday, so check that out. Thanks to everybody who supported JL, especially I know Nick DeFabrizio was out there trying to get signatures with JL, driving him around. Such a great guy. He helps out so many people. We love you, Nick. Thank you very much. And to everybody else listening, thank you for being a part of our community. Hope to see you at our Thursday night hangout. And I think those are all the announcements. Of course, if you're not already a paid subscriber, sign up now. Patreon.com/Pete Dominick. You can always pay more if you want. It's here at the beginning of the month, the beginning of December. The days continue to get darker up until December 21st. So make sure you acknowledge that. Look for the sun and get outside whenever you can. Then send me your vitamin N photos while you're at it, everybody. Hashtag vitamin N. Send them my way. And everything else, standupwithpete@gmail.com. All right, let's get started with those headlines. First and foremost, there is a very tight special election today in a deep red House district in Tennessee. House Speaker Mike Johnson campaigned with a Republican yesterday. He had Con Juan call in and played him on speakerphone and upset everybody. It was pretty funny. Also, news from the regime, they are now excluding pornographic activity from a new tax break on tips. So the IRS is going to have to decide what is and what isn't porn. That's a pretty interesting development. Yesterday, we got health news about the Mad Red Hatter. We got a memo from his doctor about a recent MRI, which said that the president's cardiovascular and abdominal imaging was, quote, perfectly normal. So I guess there's nothing to see here. I don't know why they did an MRI. I guess it doesn't matter. Also yesterday, a federal appeals court said that Alina Habba, former lawyer for Burger King, has been serving unlawfully as the U.S. Attorney in New Jersey since March. She was neither confirmed by the Senate nor appointed by trial court judges. The ruling follows a similar one from last week that vacated the indictments of James Comey and Letitia James because the prosecutor who filed them, a Trump loyalist named Lindsay Halligan, was improperly installed. The administration has sought to keep Habba in power through a series of unusual maneuvers. Not immediately clear how the ruling would affect legal proceedings in the New Jersey federal courts. Some criminal cases have already been slowed and some grand jury proceedings halted since Habba's status was challenged by various defendants, according to the New York Times. One of the biggest stories for several days has been as a result of reporting from the Washington Post that Pete Hegseth was the guy who gave the order to kill those survivors of one of the targeted strikes in the Caribbean. Well, now the story has changed a little bit because Hegseth is blaming on or giving credit or responsibility to a Navy Admiral, Frank Mitch Bradley, who they say acted legally and retains their full backing. But they're now making sure, the administration, Caroline Leavitt yesterday, as well as Pete Hegseth, that it was Admiral Bradley's decision to take. And now everybody's questioning, is this naval admiral going to be the one who's scapegoated on this? Let's remind everyone, Hegseth said on September 3rd that he'd watch the attack live in real time, thus tying him more closely to events than that had unfolded. You could also make the case that Hegseth has generally set a different tone about the military's rules of engagement, which is always likely to end in more deaths, according to Political Playbook. On the other hand, Hegseth will surely be emboldened by the New York Times story last night on the events of September 2nd, which cites 5 sources who say Hegseth never specified whether a second strike was necessary if he did not fully destroy its target. Plenty of conservatives are now declaring the case closed, so we'll see how this plays out, but it's going to play out with no doubt about it. Congressional inquiries are going to continue. Should there be any questions for General Fatton himself or Hegseth and Rubio on the likely next steps. Trio is going to have a National Security Council meeting, or had one last night, to talk about the way forward. It's reporting that Burger Jean King also issued an ultimatum to Venezuela's leader Nicolas Maduro last week are true. Then the story could maybe move much quicker. Real quick, there's going to be a cabinet meeting apparently today as well, which is always real strange because everybody is going to kiss the ass of dear leader on cameras. Real obsequious, real gross, and you can expect that to happen today. Well, let's check in on how diplomacy is going. Negotiations with two completely inexperienced but very close members of one case family and friend to El Porco Chapo. It's Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, the special White House envoy. They are in Moscow to meet with Vladimir Putin. Yeah, that's right. They get a lengthy meeting with Ukrainian officials on Sunday, according to U.S. official familiar with the plans. Witkoff, Kushner, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio led the U.S. delegation in a meeting with Ukrainian delegates in Florida to discuss a possible peace plan between the two nations. So that is something to closely watch. In a related story, Russia unleashed a nearly 10-hour air assault across Ukraine on Saturday, as I mentioned yesterday, killing at least 2 people in the capital, injuring dozens more. In the Middle East, Israeli security forces shot and killed 2 Palestinian men who appeared to be unarmed and surrendering in the occupied West Bank on Thursday, according to video filmed by Palestine TV that was distributed to Reuters, video shot by the news agency itself. So that is horrific and worth looking into at Reuters. Northwestern University is given a shot at appeasement. That's right. They agreed to pay $75 million to the federal government in a deal reached on Friday with the administration that restores hundreds of millions in research funding and closes multiple investigations into anti-Semitism on campus. Because, of course, the administration is so worried about anti-Semitism. You know, that's why they keep appointing Nazis to the administration. Department of Homeland Security on Wednesday announced the end of temporary immigration protections for Haitians, adding them to a growing list of immigrant groups seeing their protected status revoked by the administration. The effort to continue to make America as white as possible by these white supremacists. The decision becomes effective on February 3rd and could affect more than 500,000 Haitians living in the U.S. under what is known as temporary protected status. And keep an eye on this one. A little noticed provision in the sweeping One Beautiful Big Bill legislation enacted by the Republicans over the summer sharply limits the amount of federal student loans that students earning professional degrees can get, including medical school, that they can borrow. It also imposes even stricter borrowing caps for other health fields, including nursing and public health. So that's not good. And why are they doing that? And who's affected by that? Let me know if you know anybody. Also, a new study says that research found higher rates of depression, poor sleep, and obesity among children who had access to a cell phone before age 12. If you can resist it, do it. It's so vital. In Iran, the capital there in Tehran, young people have been flouting the country's strict social restrictions again with outdoor concerts, dancing, and uncovered hair. I like to see it. And this terrible story, a college student who planned to surprise her family by flying home to Texas for Thanksgiving was detained at the airport and deported to Honduras. Woman was 7 years old when her family brought her here, and now she's returned to a country that she doesn't know and hasn't lived at for years. Tragic story worth reading and learning about. Her name is Lucia Lopez Balosa. She was 19. She is 19, and she was detained by immigration agents at the Boston airport before a flight to surprise her family to Texas, for Thanksgiving. She's now in Honduras. This is a really enraging story. If you've already heard about it, then you know. If you don't, now you're enraged, and it's worth following up on. And I hope media will keep paying attention in this woman's case, like they did Abrego Garcia and so many others. All right, those are the headlines that I've got for you. Now it's time to go to the clips that I've gathered. Let's start with Senator Mark Kelly, who held a press conference yesterday, and it was real good, worth watching a lot of it. And I really thought that this is probably the most powerful part of it, so I want to start with it.
I will not be intimidated by this president. I am not going to be silenced by this president or the people around him, because I've given too much in service to this country to back down to this guy. In 1991, when Donald Trump was driving the Taj Mahal casino into bankruptcy, I was getting shot at over Iraq and Kuwait. In 2001, after Donald Trump said that the collapse of the Twin Towers meant he now owned the tallest skyscraper in Manhattan, I was carrying flags honoring 9/11 victims into space on a rocket ship. In 2003, when Donald Trump was writing birthday greetings to the monster Jeffrey Epstein, I was the first on the scene to recover the bodies of my fellow astronauts who died when Space Shuttle Columbia exploded during re-entry. In 2011, when Trump was hosting a reality show and peddling conspiracy theories against President Barack Obama, I was sitting next to my wife's hospital bed as she recovered from a gunshot wound to the head. My point is this. I've been through a lot worse in service to my country. The president and Pete Hegseth are not going to silence me.
Yes, indeed they're not. As a matter of fact, I'd like to hear a little bit more, Senator Kelly. Please give it to me.
Throughout his entire career, in business, reality TV, and politics, Donald Trump has had one and only one play: bullying his opponents into silence. He did it as a failed casino owner who bankrupted his properties and screwed over his contractors. He did it as a reality TV host known for firing people. And he's done it as president who tries every day to intimidate people with no regards for the rights or well-being of the American people. I'll say this for the guy. While he's never seemed to do much else right for most of Donald Trump's career, bullying people has worked out for him. But not now. Because I won't let it happen. The American people won't let it happen. President Trump is trying to silence me, threatening to kill me for saying what is true. And he sent his Secretary of Defense after me. And it's not going to work.
No, it's not going to work. I think we can definitely agree on that. So now this is all has something to do with the fact that Senator Kelly and many of his colleagues said to the military, made a video, a PSA, said, hey, don't follow unlawful orders. So did they? Is that what happened in the Pacific with all these targeted strikes? Well, who knows? I mean, we're going to find out, I guess. It looks like they did. It looks like murder to me. I don't know. I'm no legal scholar. We'll talk to one coming up here in a little bit. But do have to mention that while he's talking about preventing drugs from coming in, and a lot of people are buying that, unfortunately, he's also pardoning somebody who, well, brought in a lot of drugs. Let me give it over to ABC's George Stephanopoulos and reporter on this very important case.
Trump announced over the weekend that he would pardon the former president of Honduras, who was convicted just last year of conspiring to import cocaine into the United States. Jay O'Brien has the story. Good morning, Jay.
Yeah, good morning, George. President Trump has repeatedly warned that drug cartels present an urgent danger to the United States. But this morning, in a major contradiction, the president announcing he's pardoning Juan Orlando Hernandez, the former president of Honduras, currently serving a 45-year prison sentence here in the U.S. for drug trafficking and weapons charges. In 2024, the Department of Justice said that for nearly 2 decades, Hernandez helped cartels, quote, move mountains of cocaine into this country, and was at the center of one of the largest and most violent drug trafficking conspiracies in the world. And despite that, in a post announcing his endorsement of the conservative candidate in Honduras' ongoing elections, Trump also promised to grant Hernandez a, quote, full and complete pardon, claiming the former leader had been treated very harshly and unfairly, and arguing without evidence that Hondurans believe Hernandez was, quote unquote, set up. Now, Democrats slamming this move, calling it part of a string of controversial pardons issued by President Trump. Even Republican Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana questioning why the administration would pardon Hernandez and then go after Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro on similar accusations of drug trafficking.
How about that? How about that report? Yes, as I said yesterday, Now let's listen to the former Secretary of Defense and head of the CIA when Obama was president. It's Leon Panetta on CNN.
Secretary Pete Hegseth is strongly defending his operations in the Caribbean, saying they are, quote, lawful and, quote, in compliance with the law of armed conflict. But if the U.S. military knew about survivors from that initial September 2nd strike and sought to strike again and kill everyone on board who had survived, is that illegal? Is that a war crime?
Well, I don't think there's any question that that's a war crime if it happened in that way. I think the best thing that's happening now is that the Armed Services Committee in both the Senate and the House have indicated that they're going to do a full investigation of this issue. And I think that's what's needed, because there's obviously going to be a lot of different viewpoints. You heard what the president said. But I think ultimately it's up to those committees to find out exactly what happened. And if it was a war crime, to make sure we hold people accountable.
And those armed services committees in the Senate and the House, they have access to the most sensitive classified information. So I'm sure they will get that and find out exactly who gave those orders and what was done.
All right. Well, there's that. And now here's Ana Navarro on The View on ABC tackling this.
The most ironic thing about this is, so he's doing all of this against Venezuela. And let me just be clear, Nicolás Maduro in Venezuela is a horrible, cruel, corrupt dictator. The day he leaves, whether it is to a hellhole somewhere or if he dies and goes to hell, I will be very happy. But I think America needs to ask themselves, do we want to perpetrate regime change in the region? Donald Trump is trying to convince Americans that this is about fighting drugs, and this is because Maduro released crazy people, opened up the jails and the insane asylums and sent people here. That second part is flat out lies. There is no evidence of that. On the drug aspect, very little of the drugs that go through Venezuela actually come to the United States. That is not the preferred path for drug dealers. The preferred path actually goes through the Pacific coast, through Central America. And you know what Trump did this weekend? He announced he was going to pardon the former Honduran president, Juan Orlando Hernandez, who actually is in U.S. prison right now with a 45-year sentence for having flooded the streets of the United States with cocaine for decades and decades. Yeah. This was a case that was investigated. The lead investigator in this was Trump's lawyer, the guy he's got like second in command at DOJ, Emil Bove. This is a guy, this Juan Hernandez, who boasted about, I'm going to get the gringos, I'm going to stuff cocaine up the gringos' nose. He got allegedly, or it was shown through the prosecution, $1 million bribe from El Chapo, one of the worst drug traffickers in history, in order to allow the drugs to go through to Mexico. So you can't, on the one hand, be portraying yourself as the fighter of drugs, and we're going to go to war against Maduro and against Venezuela because they are flooding us with drugs, which they're not. And on the other hand, pardon the guy who actually did flood us with drugs.
Well, and I think that's the thing. That's why you know it's a subterfuge. That's why you know that it's just not true, because a lot of the Venezuelan drugs, and there is drug trafficking there, a lot of it also ends up in Europe. It does not end up in the United States. A lot of the fentanyl, which everyone is very concerned about, comes from Mexico. So the fact that they are dropping bombs in international waters outside of Venezuela and closing Venezuelan airspace seems to me to be some sort of subterfuge for something else.
Yeah, Sunny Hostin and Ana Navarro making a lot of sense yesterday on The View. Sunny is a lawyer. I think Ana might be as well. All right, now I've got to share with you a response from the regime itself. Caroline Leavitt prepared a statement, very carefully worded. And this is short, but I do want you to hear it because I've been playing all these accusations. And this is what their defense is. It's bad.
question. The president several days ago said it was his intention to pardon the former president of Honduras, who was a convicted drug trafficker. And yesterday on Air Force One, the president said that if someone sells drugs in that country, that doesn't mean you arrest the president and put him in jail for the rest of his life. How is that different than what the administration is accusing Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro of?
You're cherry-picking the president's statement a little bit yesterday, as he also said yesterday the people of Honduras have highlighted to him how the former president Hernandez was set up. This was a clear Biden over prosecution. He was the president of this country. He was in the opposition party. He was opposed to the values of the previous administration, and they charged him because he was president of Honduras. There were some other egregious facts that came out during this trial, and I would encourage you to report on them. His court-appointed lawyer was only given 3 weeks to prepare for trial. He shared that his conviction was lawfare by the leftist party, who, quote, struck a deal with the Biden-Harris administration. Hernandez has highlighted there was virtually no independent evidence presented, and many of his conviction was based on testimony from many admitted criminals who hoped that cooperating would reduce their own penalties. So the president heard the concerns from many people, as he does, and he's, of course, within his constitutional authority to sign clemency for whomever he deems worthy of that.
All right, there you go. I guess he can sign clemency for anybody he deems worthy. All right, now let's go to this guy, Corbin Trent. He is of an organization that he co-founded called Justice Democrats, I guess. Grew up in northeast Tennessee. So he's got the quick report on this special election that's happening today.
Corbin Trent here. Man, there's some exciting things happening here in Tennessee. If you've not heard of Afton Bain, if you've not heard of Tennessee 7, check it out. That election is tomorrow. It's a special election for U.S. House. And we've got a progressive Democrat that has closed the gap in a 22-point Trump district. 22-point Trump district to 2 points, according to the Emerson polling. If she keeps that margin on Election Day, it's going to transform what's possible across this country. First of all, there's 3 more districts in Tennessee that are very similar to that one. It's going to open those up for possibilities right around Nashville. But, I mean, it's going to be countrywide. If she pulls this out with a victory, forget about it. It's going to be a political earthquake that's equivalent to AOC's win back against Crowley in 2018. Because what it's going to mean is what we thought was impossible is going to become absolutely possible. And then we're going to have to work our butts off all the way through 2026.
That's right, and we will. We definitely will, but that will be very big news. We'll watch it closely today, and I know Kevin Richburg is obsessed with it. It means a lot, obviously. So there you go. Thought that was an interesting review. And now let's listen to Jimmy Kimmel with his post-Thanksgiving first show back after Thanksgiving from the monologue last night.
President Trump spent his holiday at Mar-a-Lago, where he issued a warm Thanksgiving message. He wrote a very happy Thanksgiving salutation to all of our great American citizens and patriots who've been so nice. All right, that's something, right? So nice in allowing our country to be divided, disrupted, carved up, murdered, beaten, mugged, and laughed at. Murdered, mugged, beaten, and laughed at. I hate to be the one to tell you our country isn't being laughed at. They're laughing at you. And then Trump lashed out at Tim Walz, of all people, calling him the seriously retarded governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz. See, he can be presidential when he wants to be. I wonder why he didn't get that Nobel Peace Prize. It makes no sense. Trump posted that little blessing on Thanksgiving. It caused quite an uproar, even among a handful of Republicans. And I think he might have been feeling a little bad about it when asked to explain on board Air Force One.
That same post, you mentioned Tim Walz, and you called him what many Americans do find an offensive word, retarded. Do you stand by that claim of calling Tim Walz retarded?
Yeah, I think there's something wrong with him. Absolutely. Sure.
You don't think that?
You have a problem with him? You know what? I think there's something wrong with him.
Another bold statement from the president of the 8th grade. Governor Walz, in response to Trump, called on the president to release the results of that perfect MRI he got. You know, the one he still has no idea why he was given? Well, guess what? He still doesn't know why he got it or even where.
What part of your body was the MRI looking at?
I have no idea. It was just an MRI. What part of the body? It wasn't the brain because I took a cognitive test and I aced it. I got a perfect mark, which you would be incapable of doing. Goodbye, everybody. You too.
Wow, that That Melania is a lucky lady indeed. She really is. As far as his brain stuff, I don't know what people are worried about. I mean, this is from this weekend. He looks fine to me. That was the moment just after his teeth fell into his omelet. Poor guy, he hasn't been the same since Jeffrey Epstein died, you know? You lose a friend. Unfortunately, Trump's MRI results have somehow gotten mixed up with those tax returns he was supposed to release in 2016.
All right, let's, there you go, Kimmel last night. Let's head over to listen to Colbert, hear what he had to say at CBS Late Show.
The deals kicked off on Friday, and when there's cash, the president be grabbing. Last week, he sent an email to supporters that said, to celebrate Black Friday, President Trump decided to reduce the price of his iconic red MAGA hat ornament to just $37. That's right. For a limited time only, he dramatically reduced the price of his famed hat ornament, which previously was available only on his website, for $30. Wow. So, Trump's Black Friday deal is to charge you more. But wait, there's less. Call now. And while you're on the phone, I'll sneak into your house, steal some stuff, and put your pet in the dishwasher. But that's not all. Trump sent another email promising a new low price on a Trump calendar for $32, which is available on his website for $25. Okay, but for those extra $7, they throw in an MP3 of Lee Greenwood singing all the dates. I'm proud to be your calendar, starting with January. The first is first, the second is next, and then comes number 3, and number 4, 5, or sometimes 6, 7 could be next. MAGA folks are starting to notice that Trump treats them like meat animals. According to one Trump ally, people voted for him to lower prices, to bring manufacturing back, to stand up to those taking advantage of them. They didn't vote for him to build a damn gilded ballroom. Okay. I'll have you know that the entire purpose of that ballroom is to serve the poor. And they will be delicious.
All right, there you go. Colbert, Kimmel, a little comedy. Hope you liked it. Now it's time to get to my guest, my conversation with Eric Segall. You can watch it on YouTube or Substack at StandUpWithPete. You should follow Eric on Blue Sky, and you should read his books, Originalism as Faith and Supreme Myths of Court. Of course, I said of court. How about it? You know what happened there. Well, the legal eagle, Eric Segall, joined me with a great conversation. I think you're going to love it. We love Eric, as always, and this conversation was great, as always. So let's do it right now. Yeah, there he is. Eric Segall, the legal eagle, Georgia State University, constitutional law scholar. He's got a fancy chair that you're the name of. They have a chair. In academia, there's chairs. Aaron Carroll has them in his actual office. They give you a chair. An actual chair.
I am the Ash family chair professor of law, but no one ever gave me a real chair.
Oh, Aaron has.
I want a real chair.
Aaron had to add a room to their house to put all the chairs. There's chairs everywhere. Every chair you sit in at Aaron's house has a plaque on it of a famous white person.
That is funny. I think there should be a real chair. Now that I'm going to raise this with the dean.
Yes.
Thank you for mentioning.
Well, it's a very prestigious job that you've had for a long time. You've written books that keep being proven right, and including most recently Originalism as Faith, because your last blog entry talks a lot about that. They think they've won the originalists. Anyway, it's great to talk to you. I want to talk about that and a bunch of other things. Thank you for joining me live. Thank you for everybody who's slowly walking in and joining us live. How was your holiday, Eric Segall?
My holiday was great. Lynn cooked amazing food because she is amazing, and glazed carrots with maple syrup, corn souffle. Fantastic stuffing, green beans, turkey, mashed potatoes, and sweet potatoes. I wonder, is that excessive, do you think? Mashed potatoes.
I mean, listen, she had a big group, I know, and she loves to cook. So I wouldn't call it that myself, but I'll tell you this. I don't like a cooked carrot. I don't care what you put on it.
Try putting maple syrup on it.
Yeah, that sounds like, all due respect to Lynn, you tell her straight from me, I said, God damn, what the hell's wrong with you? Tell her I said
so that. Good. They're so good. I can be sensual about it if you want. They are so good. By the way, I could have just had corn souffle. corn pudding. I could have just had corn pudding. Been very happy. Just 15 huge bowls of corn pudding.
You're 6. Lots to talk about with you. I know your lane is not like military JAG law, but still, I have to ask you about how the Constitution relates and what it says about these targeted killings that this regime is doing. This is not your Obama administration or your George W. I mean, even W, when they had these targeted killings, we knew who they were targeting. They made it public. They showed you evidence, whatever. Not that it was ever okay, but this is way different. This is much, much different for a lot of reasons than those. But what are your thoughts? And is the whole legal canon in agreement on this?
I've not seen a dissenting voice yet, and I've been looking and researching and reading, and this is not my wheelhouse of constitutional law. It's not really even constitutional law. Before we get to the law of this, Pete, which is kind of complicated, but the bottom line is easy. But before we get to the law, let's just step back a second. So a boat is coming to America, and the president of the United States thinks that this boat might be up to no good, might be up to, coming here to do illegal things. Let's say the boat was coming here to bring guns instead of drugs. It had a bunch of big guns it wanted to bring in illegally, or other product that would be illegal to bring into America. And the president just kills everybody with no due process? No, that's not how this, forget law for a second. We can't have the Soviet Union and France and Vietnam and Cuba just killing people coming to their country who might be doing illegal things. That's just not how the world operates. It can't be how the world works. It's just wrong. We're not at a war with these people. There's no declaration of war. There's no fighting. We're just killing people who might commit crimes in America. It doesn't make any sense. One analogy I like to give that I haven't seen yet is, imagine if they had somehow come to America and now they're in the Hudson River. And the president thinks there's a boat on the Hudson River that has, terrible fentanyl on it or whatever. You just can't kill them. You arrest them and you give them a trial. And if it's true in the Hudson River, it's certainly true in the Caribbean, a bottle of water we have no sovereignty over. I mean, you don't need me to talk about this. You really don't.
Right.
So obviously incredibly wrong. And in fact, part of the law of the long-standing law of war, which this is not even because we're not at war with anybody, is you don't kill civilians. Now, I understand it gets complicated when you hide civilians behind military targets or whatever. But the bottom line is you have to avoid killing civilians if you can. And these people are civilians. The fact they may be part of a drug cartel or a terrorist organization does not matter at all. Now, if they were part of the terrorist organization that brought us 9/11, then we have some legal arguments we can talk about. No one's claiming that. No one is claiming that. These are just people who might be committing crimes. What if they were coming here to rob a bank? And we know that, and we know this. We can see their boat. We can see they have tools. We can see the bank. We can't kill them.
The thing is, but all that being said, my understanding is we don't know anything about them. We don't know their names.
That's the other thing.
We don't know what evidence or intelligence that our military resources have acquired for them. The New York Times did a deep dive on the family of one of those that was killed. They're destitute. We don't know if they're fishermen. We don't know anything. I mean, in the past, we knew exactly who we were. They would make a case. They would have intel. They would go through all kinds of channels and make sure.
Even then, you can't just kill them. You detain it. You capture it. Now, if they fight back, if you say, U.S. Coast Guard, U.S. Navy, we're boarding your ship because okay. If they fire guns at you, then you fire back.
That's different.
Fair.
Yeah.
That's different. That's not this. You just can't, but it gets even worse than that. Like it's even worse than that somehow, in that apparently we just learned that 2 of the people were not killed, were like on debris or hanging on to the remains of the boat. No threat to anyone in any imaginable way. Kill them all? That's a clear violation of everything. So the harder question for us. So I don't know anyone who's saying the initial, if the order was kill them all no matter what, that's just illegal and it's wrong. And then there are survivors, kill them too. That's insane. So now the question becomes, what do we do with the people who gave the order? And what do we do with the people who followed the order? The people who gave the order, that's an easy one. They lose their jobs. They should just lose their jobs. That's not a close call. I'm not suggesting the people who followed the orders necessarily get prosecuted or lose their jobs. That's a harder question. But it is the law of the United States. It is the law of war. It is the law of human rights. It is the law of everything that you cannot get in trouble for following a clearly unlawful order. This is why we had the Nuremberg trials for the Nazis, all of whom claimed they were following orders. This is why Lieutenant Calley during Vietnam was prosecuted. If the initial order wasn't clearly illegal, which it was, the order to kill the people hanging on the boat who have no threat to anybody, that is illegal under 17 different laws. So it's just, Pete, it's almost impossible to comprehend what authority the president thinks he's acting under here, because there is none. There is no authority for him to do this. It would be like a Jamaican boat heading towards Cuba, and Cuba just blows it out of the water because there might be people on board who might commit crimes. We would say, no, Cuba, you can't do that. Well, it's the same thing.
Lieutenant Calley was the My Lai massacre in Vietnam, and there are countless other examples. It's interesting, too, because I don't know if you know that story, but Hegseth and a bunch of other people, including Trump, were both, men and a few others, outspoken defenders of this notorious war criminal, the guy who killed a detainee in Iraq, a Navy SEAL. And Hegseth, Trump pardoned the guy. I mean, they celebrate other proven war criminals. In the meantime, our commander in thief is giving a pardon or commuting the sentence of this guy, Juan Orlando Hernandez, who was convicted of drug trafficking charges last year in U.S. court. And it required a whole bunch of resources.
45 years in prison, I think, because I had 45 years, I think.
I mean, he was convicted of conspiring to import cocaine into the U.S. He was sentenced to 45 years. So we're killing these low-level potential drug traffickers, drivers of drugs, transporters of drugs, and we are liberating one of the guys who was one of the most influential and loved it. And he's quoted as saying something about, we're going to stick so much cocaine up the gringos' noses or something like that. So that's a contradiction, a couple of contradictions there. But so not to be surprised when you become a war criminal yourself. I guess my one constitutional question is, the Supreme Court gave Trump immunity. Can he extend that to, in this case, Hegseth? Is he saying potentially to Hegseth and others?
No, hold on. Let me be clear about one thing. What is under the law today, of course, with this Supreme Court, you never know. Only the president has absolute immunity. None of his advisors, no one else. I
haven't heard anybody raise this, and I'm just wondering if it's just hypothetically. Could he tell Hegseth, listen, you kill everybody and don't worry about anybody coming for you because I'll pardon you no matter what? Could he be doing that?
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's an interesting question.
That was the question about
the pardon. The pardon would be effective. We can't undo the pardon under our current system. However, if somebody gave President Trump $1 million to pardon them, the pardon would be effective. But the bribery part of that might still be actionable in a world where the president could be prosecuted for crimes. So that the president can't use the pardon power to commit a crime, a separate crime. But it doesn't matter. None of this matters because until the court changes its mind, there's no evidence that could come in that would be admissible. If Trump and the Secretary of War have that conversation, the Supreme Court has said that conversation is not admissible evidence. So how would you prove it anyway?
Why are you using Secretary of War? Can you just say Secretary of Defense? That's nonsense.
Well, because, Pete, from this first second we met until this moment, I try to be as accurate as possible.
Be accurate and don't.
He is currently the secretary. By the way.
No, he's not. That's not even illegal. That's not legal. You can't change the name of that's illegal too. Where does in the Constitution say that? Doesn't Congress have the authority to change names and titles of cabinets? Jesus.
So if you haven't learned anything from me over the last 12 years, this would be the one thing. The fact that the Constitution says something or doesn't say something is not how we do constitutional
law. Okay. How about fair enough. Always worth reminding us of. Just real quickly.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state.
Yeah.
And we just lost those words. They're gone.
Those are
As
gone.
if they're not even in the Constitution.
Well, so what do you think of Senator Mark Kelly and the other Democrats who are mostly veterans basically putting out that video saying, don't follow unlawful orders? And then.
So what I find interesting about that, Pete, is not that. I mean, that is interesting. And God knows all 6 of them deserve a whole lot of credit. What I find more interesting, though, is the president's press secretary treating that video as if it said, don't follow legal orders, which they went out of their way not to say. They said, don't follow illegal or clearly illegal orders. And she says this, and the whole world can hear her, and we all know it's a lie. And yet the world spins. Like, it's bizarre. Like, this is not an opinion thing. They didn't say don't follow legal orders. They said don't follow illegal orders, but she characterized that as not following. And
everybody else did too. Everybody else, everybody on the right has as well. They're outraged that they said don't follow the orders you're given. They didn't say that. Of course, they said don't break the law. That wasn't a controversial video.
Right. And yet we go on. Like, it's really the emperor's new clothes in a way that this is Trump's specialty. It's what he does. A brief aside, Pete, last year, for the first time in my career, I lost my temper during an academic debate. It was the first time I ever did it. I had 34 years, pretty good. I've been mad. I've been riled up. I've been happy. I've been sad. I had never lost my temper until I did an affirmative action debate at Emory Law School with a person who lied every sentence. Every sentence was a mischaracterization. And I couldn't figure out how to debate him because I didn't have time. I couldn't cover all of his lies in the time allotted, and we couldn't have a real conversation because every premise he made was false. When President Trump lies 50 times a day, you can only catch up to so many. I mean, it's just crazy. Sorry, a little frustration seeping in.
Well, there's more news to talk about with obese Juan Kenobi, because he also is basically wanting to skirt. Well, I think we already talked about it. I just realized I said a brain fart. We already talked about Supreme Court and tariffs, I think.
Well, we did it a few weeks ago.
I don't know. We don't need
but there's been some conventional wisdom since then, and it seems like most people think the court is going to not let him do this.
Oh, okay.
I don't have that same faith. After the immunity case, I've lost my faith in the ability to predict the Roberts Court. I used to be pretty good at it.
What do you make of all of these prosecutions of his enemies where no lawyer at the Department of Justice would take the case? No prosecutor would. So he brought in like a real estate lawyer and the same insurance lawyer, whoever it is. And so there's that. There's also news today about Alina Habba, who is another one of his sycophants and
personal lawyer.
By the way, he just has these beautiful women that are probably smart, good lawyers, but like they don't have any history in the practice of law that they've been given the job for. I mean, I didn't say that very well.
I thought you were going to ask me about this, so I prepared something for you for this. So it has been the time since George Washington that presidents appoint friends / associates / recommendations from people they trust to high-level positions like the U.S. Attorney for New Jersey or the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, where a former beauty pageant insurance lawyer was told she couldn't do it. That's been going on forever. Obama did it, Bush did it, they all do it. The difference is that there's a difference, though, and it's a major difference. When every previous president, as far as I know, did this, they were choosing from a pool of otherwise qualified people. In other words, what Trump is doing is putting in people who have never practiced criminal law to prosecute criminal cases. And it turns out it's harder to prosecute criminal cases than people think. And there are a lot of due process and other type of requirements that go into it. And that's what they're finding out. But the really scary thing, though, is somebody is spending a lot of time trying to figure out quasi-legal ways to do this. So I actually read the Court of Appeals decision today that said Habba, whatever her name is, could not.
Alina Habba had a federal appeals court said today that Alina Habba had been serving unlawfully as the U.S. Attorney in New Jersey, dealing a blow, of course, to the regime, and most likely setting up a showdown at the Supreme Court is the reporting I've got here.
What's interesting about it is if you started to read that opinion, you would fall asleep within 6 or 7 paragraphs. It took every ounce of 34 years of teaching constitutional law and other law to even follow the opinion, Pete, because the Trump administration used a lot of subsections of this. And so they tried to do it in a way that would be consistent with what the paper law says they have to do, but they failed. They failed miserably. But the point is, someone is doing a lot of legal research, and I can't figure out who that would be. It turns out, in effect, of course, none of these cases have gone to the Supreme Court yet. So until the Supreme Court affirms these cases, we know it's all up for grabs. So I don't know if they're going to appeal these cases because they seem to be on virtually no legal foundation. The general idea is this. The founding fathers believed in separation of powers. It was really one of their main ways to avoid tyranny. So the idea was for the president's top officials, the Senate has to confirm them. Now, there may be times when someone dies in office, someone retires unexpectedly, someone is arrested for committing a crime, whatever. So we have these rules where you can put in somebody temporarily for 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, whatever. And that's a good rule because you need someone in position if someone dies of a heart attack. In this case, the first assistant to the U.S. attorney is the person who is supposed to be that person. So I'm oversimplifying. But what the Trump administration did is they eventually basically got rid of all the first attorneys and put her as first attorney just so she could become the U.S. attorney. And that doesn't work under the law. And that's what the circuit court said. But the real idea here is we want the Senate approval so that we know these people are at least minimally qualified. And what Trump has done, even at the end of the last year of his first term was just like this too. He's just putting his unqualified friends in these positions. And that's really new.
Well, but specifically because they'll carry out his orders. I mean, that's the other thing that it's interesting. We don't ever even talk about it because we've normalized it so much, but he's putting lawyers in positions at the Department of Justice so they will carry out his orders. The President of the United States is not supposed to give orders to the Department of Justice of who to prosecute.
Okay, hold on. That's not right, my friend. I'm sorry.
How dare you come to this?
I am sorry. I apologize. I hate correcting you.
Do you know what it feels like to be me right now? We're live.
For your audience, I did work the first Bush administration in the Department of Justice. I know of what I speak here. No, the Attorney General of the United States reports to the president. And the president can fire him or her for any reason whatsoever. And the attorney general is supposed to carry out the president's orders. Now, there has been a somewhat of an idea that the Department of Justice is supposed to rise a little bit above that and not be totally partisan. But the reality, Pete, is that at least since the Reagan administration, if not before, the Department of Justice it works for the president and is the executive branch.
But did other presidents, did Biden order Merrick Garland to prosecute anyone at all, ever?
Well,
did Obama?
I'll give you a better example than that one you and I have talked about a lot. And I am not.
You're going to go way back.
I'm not making a comparison here. What Trump is doing is unprecedented. But for example, when Obama bombed Libya, the first opinion he got from the Office of Legal Counsel, which is in the Department of Justice, which is supposed to give the president tough legal advice, he got 2 no's before he found a yes. And the yes one he got was from a very famous.
That's not the same. He was in that case.
Pete, it is the same.
It's not the same, and I'll tell you why. Because in that case you're giving me, the Obama administration was trying to get permission to do a thing. I'm talking about.
No, you understand what I'm saying. The first legal advice was no, you can't do it. The second legal advice was no, you can't do it. It wasn't. By the way, it's not hard for the audience to understand this. The War Powers Act requires the president to do certain things. If there are hostilities, it has to be hostilities. President Obama claimed that bombing Libya was not hostilities because American forces weren't put in danger.
How does this have anything to do with what I'm saying?
Hey,
I'm asking you.
Most liberals and progressives think that argument is frivolous.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm talking about the President of the United States ordering the Department of Justice to investigate specific people, specifically his enemies. What you just said was the Obama administration trying to get permission to do a thing, but it wasn't to investigate and prosecute.
Nixon did.
Okay, Nixon, but did Obama, did Biden ever tell their Department of Justice or their Attorney General, you need to go prosecute that former FBI, head of the FBI, or the Attorney General of New York, or any number of other people that he's told them to investigate, and then they do it?
I'm making a different point. When the president says to the Attorney General of the United States, I think Hillary, by the way, we should report some good news. We never get good news. President Trump and Baba, that same person, were fined like a huge amount of money for filing a frivolous lawsuit against Hillary Clinton and one other person. And one of the most conservative, originalist judges in America, the chief judge of the 11th Circuit in Georgia, Alabama, and Florida, upheld those sanctions against Trump for filing a frivolous lawsuit. That was pretty cool. That's actually
when does that news come out?
That news broke last Wednesday, right before.
Oh, okay. Elena.
Yes.
Appeals court upholds $1 million penalty against Trump in lawsuit.
Yeah. So there was some good news. What I was correcting you on is the president is allowed to tell the Attorney General of the United States, go do something. Now, hopefully, the Attorney General of the United States says, well, I'll only prosecute them if the evidence supports it. And if the evidence doesn't support it, I won't prosecute them. But the Attorney General of the United States does report directly to the President of the United States. Now, there's also been some norm that the director of the FBI, who basically works alongside the Attorney General, is supposed to have some shred of independence that maybe is different than that. But that's not the law, Pete. That's just practice, and that's not really happening. However, having said all of that, when the president gives an order that is clearly illegal or unlawful, then the Attorney General should say, Mr. President, and this is what happened. Nixon said to his Attorney General, fire the special prosecutor. And the Attorney General said, no, I won't. And the president fired him. He then went to the Deputy Attorney General, said, fire the special prosecutor. And he said, no, I won't. And the president fired him. He then went to Robert Bork, who was third in line, and Bork said, I'll fire him. The first two people did the right thing there. So the Attorney General is supposed to say only if the law allows this. Now, of course, no one in the Trump administration is saying this because, and this is the point of my monologue, they don't believe in the rule of law. They believe in the rule of Trump. And that is new. That is not something that has been in the Department of Justice, for a long time.
Okay. Let's talk about this other issue. Yeah, it does. But it's like, I'm just being clear. Like, there is no example in my lifetime of any president telling his Attorney General or Department of Justice anywhere to go prosecute other Americans.
But there is. Nixon did that.
I said in my lifetime. I said in my lifetime.
Oh.
And I think that matters because people don't have a memory of things that didn't necessarily happen. And they
that was mean what you just said. That was mean.
And your lifetime, I think
alive.
It happened.
I was alive for all of that.
Well, I know you saw the Cleveland administration do something similar, if I'm not. The Grover Cleveland.
See, here's the thing. If you're allowed
old?
to make fun of my age, I think I should be allowed to make fun of things about you that I'm not allowed to.
You can make fun of anything about me. That's the whole rule with me. As long as it's funny, good luck.
Okay.
Absolutely. No, but take your best shot. What are you not allowed to make fun of?
I believe I have you on tape during our last session as you saying I was funny. Didn't you say that last time?
I said you were funny at a specific moment in time, and then you weren't before and after that.
Moments. All right. Sorry. Next topic. I'm sorry.
Next topic is that you wanted to talk a little bit about Native Americans, persecution of Native Americans, how it pertains to.
So in the I think 12 or 14 years we've been doing this, I don't know if we've ever had a conversation, you and I, about Native Americans. We did once when one specific case came out, but that was one show.
I don't know if you know, but I'm pretty heavily involved and have been for years with the tribal community in a number of different ways. Grew up on it.
So I am woefully ignorant of a lot of that, but I have been learning more about it for various reasons recently. And a professor at the University of North Carolina Chapel Hill School of Law named Daniel Price wrote a really great article that I thought made some points that I haven't shared with your audience that I think were really interesting. One of which was the way we've treated Native Americans throughout history and the awful, I'm not going to, everyone knows this has been a disastrously awful thing. The Supreme Court has never condemned that. So the Supreme Court has condemned slavery. The Supreme Court condemned segregation. The Supreme Court condemned, prejudice against women. The Supreme Court has condemned various prosecutors here and there. But the Supreme Court has never come out and said, as a majority opinion, that we should view our treatment of Native Americans the way we've traditionally viewed our native, for example, of black people in this country. They've never said that. And what this person's article is about is the first step is the court needs to say that. That's like in the next case, the court needs to say we're not proud of our past about this. The only justice, liberal or conservative, who has really been on point on this is Justice Gorsuch, which I'll get to in a reason for that. Gorsuch is the most pro-Native American justice in American history, I think. And I'll get to that in a second. But I did find it interesting. So, for example, Congress is allowed to say to Native Americans, yeah, we entered a treaty with you, and guess what? We're not going to follow it. Too bad, so sad for you. And there's nothing Native Americans can do about it, nothing the Supreme Court will do about it. It is just violate their rights. We don't care. And there's 10 other things like that. So I found the idea of recently in the Trump Muslim ban case, Justice Roberts said that the court of history has overruled the infamous Korematsu case, which upheld during World War II, putting American citizens of Japanese descent in camps. And we talked about that as an evil thing. We should not have done that. It was evil. And the court talks about it that way. The court talks about Dred Scott, which held Congress couldn't end slavery in the territories and black people couldn't be citizens back in 1858. The court talks about that case as evil. It's part of the anti-canon. It's wrong. But the court has never said those words about the things we've done to Native Americans. So I thought that was interesting. The second interesting thing.
I mean, so many other institutions should also do similar things. There should be all kinds of recognitions of our history. We've tried to do that at times, but those statues and exhibits get put away. And the old ones come back.
Yeah. But the court has not been shy. It takes them a long time. Where evil is and the court deems it evil, they say so. And they haven't done so here. So that's interesting. I assume your audience is now thinking, Justice Gorsuch? Really? Why would he care about Native Americans?
He's the best friend tribes ever had, according to tribal news outlet Lakota Times. They write that he has, despite his staunch legal support for every Indian case that has ever been considered by a court where he sat, he's not highly acclaimed or honored by any of the 574 federal recognized tribes. The stigma of being a Trump nominee continues to cast doubt on his intent, despite his never ruling unfavorably in tribal cases.
Right. So,
according to a tribal news outlet.
So the reason I brought this up, in addition to just talking about the plight of Native Americans, which is really sad and tragic, is it confirms something I've been saying to your loyal listeners for 14 years. Justice Gorsuch wrote a book. It's a horrific, terrible book. I wrote a funny review of it for Dorf on Law when it came out because it was so terrible, awful, and disgusting. But there is one thing that Gorsuch said in that book consistently throughout the book that I'm sure is true, which is he loves being a Westerner. Now, he grew up in D.C. His mother was head of the EPA. He went to the same private school in D.C., outside D.C.
Not as much of a friend of the EPA as he is tribal.
Right. He likes Native Americans much more than the environment, it turns out. But so why is Neil Gorsuch of all? Because he views himself in a certain way as a Westerner who he's not. And there's nothing about him that's authentic about that. But that is how he views himself. And my point about that, Pete, is for the people out there who still have any lingering idea that Supreme Court justices decide cases based on law, they don't. I mean, hard cases they care about. They base it based on life, values, and personal experiences. So Gorsuch is the most Native American-friendly justice probably in American history. Anthony Kennedy is likely one of the most, if not the most, gay-friendly justice in American history. There have been
I like how you said gay and then took a long pause and then said friendly.
There have been 4 cases in the Supreme Court ever upholding gay rights. Anthony Kennedy wrote all 4. Okay, a Reagan appointee, all 4. Why would that be? Because he had a very, very close friend of his father who he knew very well and treated as an uncle, who lived in the closet for 25 years as dean of a law school. And Gorsuch saw with his own 2 eyes the indignity of that and became friendly to gay rights. Justice Scalia, from the moment he got on the Supreme Court to the day he died, was always in favor of gun rights, which is why we have Heller. Scalia was, adamant about that. It's not a coincidence that he loved hunting. One of his greatest passions in life was having guns and being a hunter. Justice Thurgood Marshall is the most important justice for race relations in American history. It's not close because he argued Brown and his whole life was about improving race relations in this country. And I could go, Justice Alito hates unions. He hates unions for some very personal reasons. So every case he has with unions, he rules against unions. We need to stop thinking about these people. I know this is old hat to much of your audience, as judges of law. They are people who make value choices based on the same things you and I make value choices on. Our experiences, our tastes, our life, what our life tells us. You were one of the early people back in 2009 and 2010 who was ahead of the curve on gay rights, who said, you predicted what happened because you said pretty soon in America, everybody's going to know a gay person. You're going to have a family member who's gay. You're going to have a sister-in-law who's gay. And that's going to change everything. And you were right about that. That's exactly what happened, actually. You were exactly right. But my point here is whatever big con law issue the court is deciding in the days ahead, it's just what they think is best based on an all things considered value choice. And in Gorsuch's brain, Native Americans have, and I agree with him, you agree with him, have been treated horrifically. Now, why he doesn't think that about black people and why he's adamant against affirmative action is a whole different story. But it's the Western part of this that explains Gorsuch.
It's probably due to what you said, personal experience. He had some personal experience, some nostalgia or something for Native American tribal people, but he had some negative experience.
It's because of his experiences out west, and he deems himself a man of the land or whatever. My point here, Pete, is can we please stop pretending, liberals and conservatives, moderates, whoever, it's not about law. When you give people almost irreversible power for life, which almost no one has in any democracy except our justices, then it's not going to be about law. It's just not. I mean, why would it be? If you're on the Supreme Court, Pete, and you couldn't get fired and you had 4 people who agreed with you, the country would look like you. Bald.
The country would all be bald.
I had to get that in from before. It's just
funny. It's kind of funny. Country would
kind
look
of
like
funny.
you.
I got it kind of funny. That's pretty good.
My friend Kim Nyborg writes in the chat that where it is, being the best, in reference to Gorsuch, being the best of the worst doesn't mean you're good.
No, but that's usually true. If we just look at the subset of Native American cases that Justice Gorsuch has been involved in, he has done as well, I think, as any person could expect.
Quick question about gay marriage. This Kim Davis's case, when the Supreme Court didn't want to hear it or something, are we done with that for a little bit?
We're not done with it because the Southern Baptists, so 10 zillion, gazillion of those numbers of them, want to go back over Obergefell. I have predicted, I have said consistently that I don't think the court is ever going to reverse Obergefell, but again, no one predicted the immunity case. Right. So, with that caveat, it would be so hard to untie that knot, Pete. You can't have states where some gay people are married and some aren't. That doesn't make any sense. And that's what would happen because they're not going to retroactively get people unmarried. That's not going to happen. So it's too tricky. It's too messy. Do I think there are 3 votes to do that? Yes. I think Barrett, Alito, and Thomas would do that. But the other 6, I don't think Kavanaugh would do it.
Do you want to talk about your recent piece in Dorf, the blog that you read at Dorf on Law, about originalism and the conclusions that they've come to, where they basically said, we've won. We have won. I thought it was a really interesting piece.
It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. At the Federalist Society annual lawyers convention, where I've spoken twice in my life, the most recent one, a federal judge said 2 things. Said, A, originalism has won. Let's not argue about it anymore. And B, maybe the Federalist Society shouldn't debate this anymore. We shouldn't be a debating society. We won. Let's take our spoils. For a federal judge to say that, Pete, is pretty bad. But leaving that aside, originalism has not won in any sense other than if you want to get to a position of power in Republican Party circles and conservative circles, you have to label yourself an originalist. In that sense, it's an identity card. It's an ID. I'm an originalist. I get a job. But the Roberts Court, my article coming out soon, every true story ends in death, how the Roberts Court killed originalism. There is no originalism in the Roberts Court. If you read the immunity case, there's no originalism. If you read the Trump disqualification case, there's no originalism. If you read these separation of powers cases where the president has to do this, there's no originalism. When you look at the affirmative action case, there's no originalism. There isn't even originalism in Dobbs. They never asked the question, what is the original meaning of the 14th Amendment as applied to abortion? They never said that. So it's just so frustrating to hear everybody on the right go, see, originalism won. No, it won as a gimmick, as a label. I'm ranting. I'm sorry. This is personal to me. Because in 2018, the book that I wrote, Originalism is Faith, was written under the assumption that most people, not Thomas and not Scalia, but most other people were acting in good faith. That's why I titled my book, Originalism is Faith, as a religion. It's no longer that. You cannot look at the Roberts Court's opinions over the last 6 years and say it's an originalist court. In fact, it's less originalist than the Warren Court in that sense. So the idea this federal judge would proclaim victory and just say, we won. No, you didn't. You won in tricking the entire American population to thinking that you care about what someone said 200 years ago, when all you care about is Republican Party's political agenda.
Right.
The Roberts Court is simply the party of the Roberts Court political agenda. That's what it is.
Republican political agenda.
Yeah, it's not more complicated than that. I have written about 10 essays in the last 5 years, updating them all the time with more cases that simply support the Republican Party agenda. That's what it is.
Think we'll go to war with Venezuela? He's not going to do it. He's bluffing.
Pete, so
he's giving the guy an ultimatum.
I meant to mention this at the outset. That what has always concerned me the most about Donald Trump was a statement he made a couple times during the first run for the presidency, which was effectively, why have nuclear weapons if you're not going to use them? I've always been pessimistic about the idea of humankind being able to resist, men mostly, being able to resist the siren call of these powerful weapons. But that anxiety of mine, it goes up 100 times when you talk about Donald Trump, because I don't think he understands death. Like, I don't think he understands disaster. And so when it comes to, is he going to wage war on this country or that country, the only question is, will that make him feel good?
Right.
And if it makes, because we no longer have people who will say no. We used to have people in his first term. We had, remember all those stories about all the people who said no and then got fired or quit. Those stories are all gone. So that happened all the time in the first term. I did so many of those shows with you where this appointee or that appointee quit. Bill Barr, or whoever it was, didn't matter. They all eventually said, I can't work with this. No one is saying that anymore. So that keeps me up at night, to be honest.
I don't think we're gonna do anything. I think they sent the whole Navy down there I think Maduro's gonna leave. I think he's scared. It's all just to scare him. He's gonna move to Russia.
The question is what goes in next?
Well, the woman who won the Nobel Peace Prize.
Did you see, by the way, that the
it's just weird.
Ex-president of Brazil was sentenced to prison for like 40 years for staging a coup?
Yeah.
That's how it works in real countries.
Did you see that that guy, Bolsonaro, tried to get his ankle bracelet off and escape?
Yes.
Did you know that who he was on the phone with that the night that he was trying to get out?
No, I do not.
You don't know who it was?
No.
Our own General Patton. Our own General Eisenhower. Trump called him. He was on the phone with that guy while he was trying to get out. Did you hear the Saudi crown prince came to the U.S. and Gasoline
that bothered me a lot.
Excused that he cut up an American journalist? A lot of people didn't like him. A lot of people didn't like him.
I have so much angst about Saudi Arabia from prior presidents that I have the list of things. It's terrible. People.
So speaking of which, that guy Vindman says he heard a phone call between Trump and MBS from the first administration that everybody needs to hear. That would blow your mind. He's like, release the transcript of that phone call.
I don't think it matters anymore, actually. I don't.
What about them Epstein files? Do you think that matters? Epstein files? Think that's going to hurt old Mar-a-Lardo?
I think at the...
Hungry hypocrite?
There were some good signs last week. Marjorie Taylor Greene defecting because he wouldn't support her for
Marjorie
Senate.
Taylor Brown
is a good thing. A couple other Republicans in Congress are making some noise. But overall, Pete, I don't know. It may be too late. And it just may be...
Quiet piggy.
I don't know. When I get calls from the media these days, I say to them, you only have me on if you're willing to hear all the bad news. And
I know, that's why we have you, Dr. Doom and Gloom.
And I said my nickname. But in the first administration, there was good news every now and then. And
there's plenty of good news every now and then. There's plenty of good news. I see the good news every day.
Not coming from the Oval Office, not coming from the White House.
Well, I don't know what plenty of good news that was coming from the White House in the first administration wasn't.
But there was. There were people saying no to the president.
The fact that people were saying no. Well, a lot of courts have said no, and most importantly, people have said no. Most importantly, the midterm elections. Most importantly, this guy's very, 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 very unpopular. The most unpopular ever, and he's very unhappy, Gilmore. This is like
I think there's a lot of wins. I see what you're saying in terms of there's not people standing up to him within the administration, but there are in the FBI and in plenty of other parts of.
You follow politics as well as anyone I know. Do you think the elections next November are going to be anywhere near fair?
I do think they're, and I think they're going to be, even if they weren't, even however they tried to rig them, I think that they're going to be overwhelmingly people are going to come out and support Democrats. Also, I think this gerrymandering issue is really interesting too. What's gone on there and how that's backfired. That strategy.
Thanksgiving pie on gerrymandering got a lot of attention.
No,
it wasn't mine. Somebody else put a picture of a pie up with really weird slices and said, "This is gerrymandering."
Maybe I did see that, but the point is that may have backfired on the administration. So,
why? I'm not. Well, maybe.
Well, the I don't know what the latest is on the Texas gerrymandering, but a court ruled that they couldn't do it, and a court hadn't ruled that California couldn't do it. So the
Supreme Court's going to have argument next Monday on the Texas redistricting case,
probably
which has huge consequences depending what the court does. Next week, after the argument, we should talk about that because it might have. You don't trust the Roberts Court to do anything right about this, do you?
No, not on this. No, for sure. Yeah. All right, we'll talk then. I thank you for talking now. We adore you.
Happy
we appreciate
Thanksgiving
you.
To you and your audience.
Happy time between Thanksgiving and Christmas, which should deal with the darkness. The time between Thanksgiving and Christmas, the days get shorter and shorter all the way up to the 21st. And then they start to get longer, worth mentioning, but that we should acknowledge how short the days get, and we should have a name for it. Of course, I have a name for after Christmas and before New Year's. That's Taint Week, where nothing happens, the taint. But this should also be given, this 3-week period should be given some kind of a name. We have to come up with
I agree. The last time you and I talked at exactly this time, it was light outside, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Dark.
Hey, you know that it doesn't get dark early in other parts of the like in California? Apparently, they don't have this issue. It's an East Coast. I didn't realize that I'm so dumb. I did not realize that. That's another reason.
You are not dumb.
Are their days shorter, though? Don't their days get shorter, just not significantly? They don't have the
days get shorter until December 21st, right?
Yes, but in California, I don't know. Is it daylight savings? Someone's going to have to explain this to me.
Everything is golden in California, Pete.
Wow.
That's the weird. So. One last thing. From January to June next year, 2026, the Supreme Court has a chance to dampen a little bit some of this. And it's going to be, the last 2 years have just been a disaster across the board. I'm hoping there are 3 liberals, plus Roberts, plus maybe Barrett or Kavanaugh, who will pull in the reins a little bit. And when I say that, I feel like Lucy and Charlie Brown. But Pete, I just can't believe Justice Barrett is going to enable Donald Trump to do the things he wants to do. And if she does, and if they do, then I hope America finally sees that the gig is up, that this is just a political institution doing political things. Because there are so many things that are so blatantly illegal, like killing civilians in international waters without even trying to arrest them, under no authority, in violation of international law, domestic law, all laws. This has to end. I mean, we have no law left. Sorry, last rant.
Appreciate that last point. That last point was brought to you by
Legal?
Candy carrots, made by Lynn Segall.
No, maple syrup carrots, not candy.
I can go tell her right now. I think that's reprehensible.
Technically, I think it is candy carrots. Listen, you put maple syrup on I was going to say the yellow pages, and then I realized half of your audience would know.
See, there you did it.
Maple
you ruined
syrup
it.
On my class notes, I will eat them.
Yeah, if you put maple syrup on my typewriter or my quill.
I put maple syrup on eggs.
If you put maple syrup on my...
In fact, I put maple syrup...
Sewing machine.
Maple syrup, Captain Crunch, and crab meat.
All right, fucking gross. Unbelievable. Goodbye. Thank you, everybody, for watching live. Unbelievable. And there he goes. Eric Segall and his disgusting meals, whatever you want to call them. Always great. Love him. Hope you appreciated it. I learned a lot. Great conversation as always with Segall. Go follow him. Get his books.
and learn more about him in the show notes, like every guest. Okay. Hope to see you at Thursday Night's Hangout. Hope to see you in Vegas in April. What else do I want to plug? That's it. Just John Carroll's work, johncarroll.org every day. Buy the album if you haven't. And that's all I've got. I will talk to you tomorrow right here on Stand Up. Thank you very much for listening, you bumblebees.
When you can't see the forest for the burning trees, you got to stand up. Hey, you've been sitting so long, you got the creaky knees, you got to stand up. Stand up. I think you're driving wheels with leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear and all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. And even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense and you stand up. Stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up. Stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up. Stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up. They had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We got to let him know it's his time to go and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand